Hello Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we're going to be talking about the Toronto Raptors game against the Washington Wizards. I'm pretty pleased with that one, but we will discuss that after we get to something that we haven't been able to do in a while, which is a draft profile for a player that the Toronto Raptors could feasibly draft in the first round. He's a guy that has been mocked as high as 6 in this year's draft. He is solidly been in the top 10 almost the entire year. He is an interesting prospect, but a guy that I've kind of pushed back evaluating because I was kind of a little worried about the fit with the Toronto Raptors, and also have some question marks about whether he's going to be able to become, a star in the NBA. But he is a guy worth talking about, and because I've covered so many of the players already, not mentioning him at this point, we've gotten to the point where I think it is time to talk about Kon Knueppel. And Kon Knueppel, I'm sure you know who he is if you watch any college basketball. He is pretty much the number 2 option on the Duke Blue Devils. He is a very productive, very efficient, very solid sort of wing guard player for the Duke Blue Devils. And it's kind of interesting scouting him as a prospect because he has a lot of really good things going for him, but he also has some significant flaws that could affect his ability to be a star player at the next level. So Kon Knueppel is a 6'7" wing who grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and his father was a basketball player. It's pretty funny. His dad and 2 uncles, Clint, Clay, and Cole Knueppel, all made a 3-on-3 basketball team calling themselves the Flying Knueppel Brothers. And so he has some basketball pedigree there, grew up playing basketball in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he was recruited pretty highly in his class, and he ended up going to Duke, where he has actually been a very productive freshman for the Duke Blue Devils. He is one of the top scorers on their team. He is a very accurate shooter, and he's kind of burst onto the scene as one of the best players on the best basketball team in the country. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the supporting cast, so Cooper Flagg is quite obviously the star there. He leads the Duke Blue Devils in every single statistical category: minutes, points, assists, rebounds, blocks, steals, etc. He is like an insane superstar. But then right after him, playing in the off-ball guard role, is Kon Knueppel. And obviously the Duke Blue Devils they are absolutely stacked. Even Sion James, a guy who is, maybe not mentioned very much. He's their lead guard, and he's also very good. But Kon Knueppel has a lot of really interesting things going for him. The most important of which is his ability to shoot the ball. And he takes and makes a lot of threes for the Duke Blue Devils. He is the off-ball guard, so he is running around a lot of screens trying to free himself up, but he also has some on-ball skills, which is encouraging to see. He has a good handle on the basketball. I've noticed that he is, very competent dribbling the ball, especially in traffic. So he will come off screens and shoot the ball, but he will also come off screens and then drive into the lane and run kind of like a pick and roll. It's like a dribble handoff where Kon Knueppel or one of the other bigs on Duke will pass him the ball coming off of the screen, and then they'll execute essentially a pick and roll, like a dribble handoff, where he'll drive into the lane. And then what he's very good at is finding players in the pick and roll, either kick out or rewarding, Kon Knueppel with an accurate lob pass so that he can finish. He and Kon Knueppel have a really good synergy together. He is able to find him on the lob very well. I think that the level of skill and polish with Kon Knueppel is his biggest attribute as a player, is that everything looks very smooth, looks as it should. He does not turn the ball over. That is really one of the big things for him, is that when he gets the ball, and it's not too much of a surprise because he does not handle the ball as the primary creator very often. He is, as I mentioned, the off-ball guard. His role in the offense is not as big as some of the other players in this draft class. He is the second option on the team, but most of those reps that he is taking are as an off-ball guard. He is not really running the offense that much, but when he does, it looks pretty good. He has very good court vision. That's one of the things that's good about him, is that when he gets the ball in his hands, he makes accurate passes that are good reads. Nothing too flashy, but at the same time, he's making reads that help Duke's offense function. He looks good with the ball in his hands. He looks very smooth and reliable when he's handling the ball. Sometimes he'll come off a screen and then make an easy pass, or sometimes he'll make like a skip pass or a bounce pass to a player who's cutting. He's just a good, solid passer who is going to make the right play the majority of the time down the floor. There are question marks about kind of whether he will be a star in the NBA. I think that would be my real concern with him, is that I don't know if Kon Knueppel's ceiling is as high as some of the other players in this draft class. And the reason I say that is because I think that Kon is limited athletically. He is not a very good vertical athlete. Although he stands 6'7", he kind of struggles to dunk even when he has a big runway. He doesn't have an elite first step. So, as I mentioned before, one of the reasons that he is kind of an off-ball player is that he needs kind of a head of steam in order to get into the lane. Duke is good at generating that, so they will do a dribble handoff, and when that happens, he's already moving quickly, so he can get into the lane a little bit more easily there. It's not as if he has the burst to blow past his man, or even sometimes use a screen and then explode to the rim to get his defender behind him. I think that, especially at the NBA level, where you're dealing with athletes on the defensive end who are going to be able to close distance very quickly and move laterally, he might struggle to create separation at the next level. I think if you were to project him in the NBA and say, like, well, who could he be like that is a star player? One of the guys that I've seen with a similar skill set and maybe a similar level of athleticism, although I think Booker's first step is a lot better. Yeah, Devin Booker is a guy that if Kon Knueppel were to reach his ceiling and, you know, you're looking for a player comp where you're like, could this guy become a star? That's a guy I would look at. So Devin Booker is a player who can generate his own shot, who is a very good shooter, who is an off-ball player, can handle the ball a little bit, but is more comfortable playing as the scorer off of the ball, but is, you know, a deadly shooter and a deadly scorer. So if you were to look at a guy that was able to climb the mountain and become a star, that's a guy I would compare him to. That's probably one of his best abilities as a one-on-one scorer, is when he has the ball in his hands, he can pull up and shoot the ball. He has a number of very good-looking, smooth moves. He has a nice, quick, high release. He can generate step-back shots. He can create for himself pulling up off of the dribble. Everything looks very smooth and correct. I think that he is going to be able to shoot at the next level. I think that as an off-ball player, as a role player who's playing off of some of the other primary creators, especially early in his career, I think that he would have the ability to blend right in as a shooter who can move off of screens, catch the ball, and shoot, or cut to the rim. When he's moving off of the ball, he can catch the ball and make a pass to a teammate. He, as I mentioned, is got his head on a swivel, and he understands where his teammates are, and he can make pretty good reads when he gets the ball on a cut. I think that just in general, when you watch him play, there's a high level of polish, there's a high level of basketball intelligence, and he is a very good shooter. And he started off the season actually not shooting very well. He had a couple of games where he was just, you know, struggling to find the basket, but as of late, he has been shooting the ball very well, and he is making almost 40% of his three-point shots, so 39.5% of his three-point shots on 5.5 three-point attempts a game, which is very good, especially on a very stacked team like the Duke Blue Devils. There are a lot of mouths to feed, and he knows his role. His job is to be the shooter on the floor, to space the floor, move off of the ball, finish plays, and then he sprinkles in enough, you know, on-ball stuff that he's not one-dimensional. And then on the defensive end, you look at him, shooters are generally not seen as very good defenders. Generally, they lack in a couple of areas, and Kon is not an excellent, he doesn't have a great first step, he's not a good vertical athlete, so you would assume, like, alarm bells going off in your head, this guy's gonna suck on defense, and that's not really true. I think that he holds his own on the defensive end. He's got good height. His lateral foot speed's actually pretty good. He has really good awareness on the defensive end. He knows where he should be. He's very good at reading plays as they develop, and he stays in position. He's kind of a ball hawk, where he is paying attention to what the ball handler is doing and understanding where his man is when he's off the ball, which he usually is. So he can intercept passes to the corner. He can blow up plays. He is a good off-ball defender. And then when players isolate against him, as I mentioned, his lateral foot speed's actually not that bad, and he can track players around and provide competent defense on ball. The thing is that the NBA is completely different than college basketball, and Duke is a very good defensive team. So Kamen Malawach, Cooper Flagg, those guys are scary rim protectors. Those guys are going to come over and just erase shots at the rim. So your responsibility as an on-ball defender is to guide your man toward the shot blocker. But I have not seen anything that makes me jump out and say this guy is going to suck at the next level. I think there's potential for him to be a decent defender at the NBA level. So I think what you're looking at with Kon Knueppel is a good all-around player. He can play a little bit on the ball. He can play a little bit off of the ball. He can be a role player at the next level. I think that you're not going to see a ton of problems. Like, I think he could fit onto almost any team that drafts him because he has a very in-demand skill, and it's not like he is one-dimensional. He has a lot of really nice attributes as a player, and he's a good team player who can fit into a lot of different schemes. I think that this guy, especially with the level of efficiency that he has, the good court awareness and high basketball IQ, and on both ends of the floor, I think that he'd be able to pick up any team's system relatively quickly and become a competent NBA role player at the next level. The issue, of course, as I mentioned before, is with his physical tools, notably his athleticism, first step, that sort of thing. Is this guy going to become a star? I think that you're looking at a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy who, at his very best, could potentially become someone a little like Devin Booker. I think with his high floor and his low ceiling, is a solid, good starter at the NBA level. Who's able to come in right away and make a difference. And of course, that's not going to excite a lot of people, especially if you're talking about a top 5 pick in this year's draft, and I have good news on that front, so we'll get into it shortly. But when you're talking about near and around the 10 spot in this year's draft, maybe 8, 9, 10, maybe 10, 11, Kon Knueppel, I would be okay with drafting. I'm not thinking about him as a guy in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 range. I'm not going to be, jumping for joy if the Raptors drafted Kon. But around the 10 spot, I'd be nodding my head and being like, okay, I kind of get it. I understand why they take this guy. And really, I mean, you just have to look at the mocks, look at all of the ink that has been spilled on this year's draft. He's consistently mocked in the top 10. And we've seen a guy like that. We saw a guy whose draft stock fell through the floor, who had a lot of questions about his physical tools and his wingspan, and that was in last year's draft. And the Raptors had an opportunity to draft him, and that's Kyle Filipowski, another Duke Blue Devil. And, he has a negative wingspan, so his wingspan's shorter than his height. And he had some physical concerns, like, is he going to be able to move his feet at the next level? Is he going to be able to play high-level defense? There were question marks about him and his physical tools, but he has been a very good player for the Utah Jazz, and we saw it the other night. He just knows how to play basketball. He looks good on the court. He's not blowing the doors off where you're like, oh my God, this guy is an elite prospect, but he plays the game the right way, and it looks good, and he has a high skill level. And sometimes that's what matters. That's the important thing, is can this guy play basketball? Are they doing the right stuff on the floor? And all of the physical stuff takes a backseat to that. I mean, there are a lot of players who have shown that really the most important thing is just, can you play basketball? And I think Kon Knueppel can do that. I think he can play basketball, and I think he'll be a good pro at the next level. So yeah, that's kind of my take on Kon Knueppel. Let me know what you think in the comments section. What is like the absolute max that you would be happy drafting this guy? Like where would the Raptors have to be in the draft for you to be like, okay with drafting Kon Knueppel? Let me know here in the comments, and we are going to move along to our next point. So Tank fans rejoice, and also really shame on me for misleading all of you, because I was beating the drum that the Toronto Raptors were just going to, whitewash the Washington Wizards, beat them down in Toronto, and come away with an easy victory. And that wasn't the case. The Toronto Raptors lost against the Washington Wizards last night, and there are a couple of things that we can talk about, but first, we're going to move on to the player evaluations. So first on the list tonight, we've got to give it to the big guy, Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl was, again, easily the best player in this game. I mean, okay, Jordan Poole was great for the Wizards. He made a lot of really difficult shots and was the high scorer in the game. I'd still probably give it to Poeltl. Every single time Jakob Poeltl was on the floor, the Raptors looked good, and every time he stepped off of the floor, the Raptors looked bad. He's probably been the Raptors' second best player this season. Scottie Barnes has been the first best player, in my opinion, but Jakob Poeltl is right there. He's close to Scottie Barnes in terms of the impact he has when he's on the court and the amount of games that he's played. So let's look at his stats. 21 points on 13 shots, very efficient, 3 of 3 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 0 blocks, 2 turnovers. Why don't we just start with the passing? The passing was amazing, especially in the first half. He was diming guys up. They were running guys off of screens. They were getting cutters into the paint. Jakob Poeltl was finding them, leading the passes, doing a great job of getting the passes onto the hands of the players who are cutting to the rim. Great playmaking. Defensively, he did a really good job on Alex Sarr. I'm impressed with Alex Sarr. I think that he is a good-looking prospect. I think that he has all-star potential. I liked him in last year's draft. He's just looks like a solid young big who has a high ceiling. The guy looks like he can do a lot of stuff on the floor. And he had a couple of good-looking moves against Jakob Poeltl where he was able to, get around Poeltl, lay it up, but to be honest, Jakob Poeltl, for the most part, really contained Alex Sarr. Just his foot speed is very good for a big, especially when he's guarding other bigs. Alex Sarr, I think, has the quickness advantage over almost every center in the league. He was having a really difficult time using his first step to get past Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl has great foot speed for a big. He was tracking him toward the basket and disrupting his shot. Alex Sarr was a 5 for 16 from the field for only 10 points. So great job by Jakob Poeltl. And then on offense, his hands are great. It just goes to show, because when you have another guy on the floor like Orlando Robinson, who does a lot of similar things to Poeltl defensively, passing the ball, that kind of stuff, but his hands are just so bad. He can't catch the ball. When he gets inside, he can't finish. He doesn't have good touch on his layups. Jakob Poeltl has just all of those things in spades. He's great at catching passes on the roll, and when he gets inside, nothing is flashy. It's either a push shot or a layup, but they go in. And he has a good first step. One of the things that he's really good at is when he gets the ball, he can explode past his man. He, as I mentioned, his foot speed is good, and he can use that against other bigs as well. He kind of surprises people with his ability to get to the rim. Just a great game. Great on both sides of the ball. So he was the best player in the game last night. Next up, we'll go to Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes had an okay game on the offensive end. He was, at times, he was attacking relentlessly inside and going to the basket, and he did draw a ton of free throws, so that's very good. His efficiency wasn't amazing, so let's look at the stats right now. 18 points on 16 shots, so field goal percentage pretty low. 1 of 3 from 3, which is, that's okay for him. But here's the big difference maker, and it was one of the reasons why he had a good game, was the free throws. He went to the line 10 times. He was 9 of 10 from the free throw line, so the aggressiveness paid off. And although he wasn't able to score very efficiently from the field, when you go to the free throw line 10 times and you make 9 shots, that's going to be a pretty good night, almost guaranteed. So 18 points, only 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 2 turnovers. But yeah, the defense was great. He and Jakob Poeltl, when they're on the floor together, I've said this so many times, this is going to create a good defensive team. That is the core of a strong defense, is having a good center and a strong defensive forward who can clean up the messes that happen on the perimeter. And those two just do a fantastic job of that. And of course, Scottie Barnes can play on-ball defense, he can play off-ball defense, he can protect the basket. He's very versatile. 4 steals is a lot. Yeah, he had a great night. I think he had a really good night. Obviously, the starters did not play a ton of minutes. Jakob Poeltl only played 24. He's still on a minutes restriction. And Scottie Barnes, I guess, is on a minutes restriction too, because he only played 27 minutes this game. And then the third guy on this list is RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett had 23 points on 17 shots. He was 4 of 5 from 3, which is, excellent. He is, again, showing that he can be a good spot-up shooter. Was just nailing threes all night long. He was 5 of 5 from the free throw line, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, but then 5 turnovers. So yeah, RJ had an uneven game on offense. In the first half, really what saved his night was the shooting. The 3-point shooting was great, but he was throwing a lot of junk up there. A lot of weird looking shots, a ton of push shots from RJ. And his push shots have been pretty good for the most part, but last night they were really inaccurate. And I guess I should give him props for going 5 of 5 from the free throw line, because that's been his weakness this season is at the free throw line. But he was throwing a lot of junk up and then making uncharacteristically poor decisions in the half court when he was handling the ball. He was trying too many cross-court passes, and the Wizards picked him off a lot. Again, Bilal Coulibaly is a good defender, and he stripped and turned over RJ on one possession. Just a great defensive play. But yeah, RJ had a decent night, and especially a really good night shooting the ball from 3 and at the free throw line. So I think a pretty good game. He only played 28 minutes. Then we'll go to Jamal Shead. Jamal Shead had a really good night. Maybe he should have been higher in this list. He played 29 minutes, and he had, unfortunately, a game winner that was waved off. You hate to see it, kind of. For him, I hate to see it, because I think he has been a really big surprise for the Toronto Raptors. He has been a really dependable second and third guard off of the bench who can come in and run your offense and play solid defense. And yeah, he was given the task of scoring at the end of the game, and he was able to score right at the buzzer, but the shot was waved off because it was touching his fingertips. So there was a huge celebration. Everybody was, rah-rah, giving him his props. But then the refs went and looked at it, and they made the correct call. They waved off the basket because it was after the buzzer had sounded, which is unfortunate for him, kind of fortunate for the Tank. But yeah, let's look at his stats. 11 points on 12 shots, not great. 1 of 2 from 3, that's good. 0 of 0 from the free throw line. 5 rebounds, 9 assists. 9 assists. This guy is making high-level reads, difficult passes that are accurate, and putting the ball into the players' hands who should have it, and running the pick and roll very well. He is a very good playmaker at the guard spot. He is a really, really talented passer, and I love watching him run the Toronto Raptors offense. Full stop. 9 assists, 1 turnover. All of the passes were just on the money. Really good looks for his teammates. He had a bunch of potential assists that went to waste, but love watching this guy run the team. 1 steal, 0 blocks, 2 fouls, and he plays good defense too. He gets a lot of deflections, he gets a lot of offensive fouls where he draws offensive fouls. He got a steal in this game. I think he's a good defensive player, and I'm just really happy that the Raptors drafted him. I love watching him play. So next up, we'll go to AJ Lawson. Yeah, another tough night for him. 7 points on 11 shots, 1 of 7 from 3. He played 32 minutes, so if they're playing him for the reasons I think they're playing him, then he did a good job and kind of mission accomplished. So yeah, we might have a tank commander here. Now let's go to the bench. Jared Rhoden had another good game. He's kind of stealing the spotlight from AJ Lawson in terms of what he has been able to do as a 10-day player. He had 13 points on 8 shots. He was 0 of 2 from 3, but again, he went to the line a bunch, which he did the last game as well. He was 5 of 6 from the free throw line. 4 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 1 block, 3 turnovers. Thought it was a solid game from him. He has been one of the 905's best players this year, really showing that he is putting in a lot of work, and you'll love to see it. Maybe this guy should be getting the start over AJ Lawson. Who knows? We'll see. Next up, we'll go to Jamison Battle. Jamison Battle, again, really dependable shooter. This is what the guy is in the game for. 11 points on 4 of 7 shooting. He was 3 of 5 from 3. 8 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 1 turnover. Jamison Battle, especially against lower levels of competition, you can keep him on the floor for a long time. And honestly, he just played great last night. He played almost a little too good. Maybe that's why he only played 21 minutes. He was really, really knocking his shots down, playing pretty good defense, and yeah, 8 rebounds, 4 of them offensive. That's pretty impressive. He was really chipping in. He's a pretty big guy. I mean, a lot of the time, that is what it comes down to, is that you're just bigger and stronger than the other players, and he can pitch in on the boards and get you some extra possessions, which he did. Loved what he was bringing to the table last night. Last up, we'll talk about Colin Castleton, because we've discussed Orlando Robinson. There was more of the same. I thought he was okay. 6 points on 6 shots. He had 6 rebounds, 4 of them offensive. That's nice to see, and 2 blocks. Yeah, maybe he is the guy that the Raptors should be rolling with instead of Orlando Robinson. The Raptors were missing a lot of forwards last night, and I think instead of going small, they decided to play Castleton alongside Pirtle and Castleton alongside Robinson. They even played Robinson and Pirtle together. I don't know if that's like a tank decision or what, but those guys played a lot together. But yeah, I thought he was okay, played 26 minutes and came away with a pretty solid impression of him. Maybe he's the guy that they should be, giving the minutes to over Orlando Robinson. In any case, that was the game. The Toronto Raptors did a similar thing to what they did the past couple of games. Played against, it was kind of like a reminiscent of what happened in Orlando, all the way down to the buzzer beater. This one, thankfully, was waived off because, as you may know, I want the Toronto Raptors to get a top 5 pick this year. And yes, I am kind of cheering for losses at this point. And let's be honest, the front office is as well. You don't play a bunch of 10-day guys and rookies in the final minutes of a winnable game if you're not trying to lose the game. Like, let's just be straight up about it. They were not trying to win this game. They were trying to, quote, develop guys. And here's the thing, it's not about development. They're playing 10-day guys. They're playing guys who are not going to be with the team long term. I'm sure it's like a tryout for them, but a lot of these guys are not going to make it. And like, if it's about getting reps for guys who are going to be on the team next year, you would think that Jamison Battle, who is signed to a contract next season, only plays 21 minutes, and you have a guy like AJ Lawson, who is 2 of 11 from the field, playing 32 minutes. Right? That doesn't make sense. So it seems like the Toronto Raptors were really, not in it to win it. But yeah, the Washington Wizards were actually a lot more competent than I thought. I mean, I knew that they traded for Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton, but there was a cool thing that I heard on the broadcast where in the minutes that Chris Middleton plays, the Washington Wizards are actually like a positive team, like they're actually winning their minutes. And that makes sense. Chris Middleton is a long-time, star. He's been an all-star before. He is a, very dependable player mostly on offense nowadays, not as much on the defensive end, but he had a bunch of good-looking buckets, and he's a wily vet that helps your team win, and Marcus Smart is the same. So I get it, and maybe I underrated the Washington Wizards a little bit, overrated the Raptors, especially if they're going to be tanking at the end of the game. So, they play them again tomorrow night at 7:30, and that is again in Toronto, and we will see if the Toronto Raptors trot out a similar lineup, because this one was good enough to lose the game. And if you're a Tank fan, you'll love to see it. Anyway, that is the episode. Let me know what you think about Kon Knueppel. Is this guy worth it? When do you want to see this guy drafted? If the Toronto Raptors fall out of the top 10 and he's there, do you just say, let's roll the dice and give him a shot? Or do you just think that he's maybe too athletically limited? Is there too much role duplication going on? Let me know here in the comments, and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. I love talking to Raptors fans. We are the best. Don't let anyone tell you differently. I love hearing your comments, answering your questions, all that good stuff. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe. It helps the algorithm put this video content in front of other Raptors fans such as yourself. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.